But in the art of fairness, I never want to just rag on something. So I'm going to throw up this little thing that I may do with a lot more movies or comics or everything. Here's how I would have done this season better. First, keep the first 4 episodes, they're good enough that they really don't need a lot of changing. However, I'd insert more into Daredevil burning his candle at both ends. Then, instead of introducing Elektra with a standard, "I'm on your couch," I'd have him maybe digging into Roxxon by himself, or introducing the blacksmith in the vacuum after Kingpin, and actually have him entering the fray, overworking himself on the vigilante end, rather than being grabbed by the collar by Elektra. That way you make it Matt choosing to be Daredevil, rather than being mysteriously strung along by Elektra. Because then you can actually show him needing to make actual decisions about what he's doing, rather than, "Hey, these are ninjas, come on bruh," sort of argument. Then you push the fact that he's not superhuman, because honestly, in this, you never see him actually exhausted or really hurt horribly. Him having a concussion, I think, in the first couple episodes is the closest you get to him being treated in the same way that he was in the first season. Even the long, sprawling fight, which, while being very sweet to watch, didn't end with him being exhausted or winded, or even like halfway through, kind of like the hallway fight in the first season. However, just remember this is after the first run through of the season, so I could have missed that scene or any, subtlety there. Anyways, you get him in the middle of this war between the blacksmith and the Yakuza, while still fighting for vigilante rights in the Punisher case, and have him out of commission in his apartment after a hell of a beatdown from the Hand, and that's when he bails on the court case, and Foggy knows that when he puts on his big boy pants during the trial of the Punisher, and then have his opening statement really, call on that. But I'm not saying that they needed to cut out the Hand or Elektra story proper. No, see, what you do is you split it into 3 arcs, and you can tell that's what they were kind of trying for. The first being the capturing of the Punisher, middle being the trial of the Punisher, and showing how hardcore Matt's going on his nightly antics, and then the last 4 episodes dealing with Elektra and the Hand. Guess I'll get to that now. See, after the trial of the Punisher, still play the Kingpin angle and all that, while Daredevil is getting closer to who the blacksmith is. When going after the DA or something for info, he's confronted with an entire platoon of Hand, with a woman as lead. Yes, introduce Elektra this way, have her be one of the leaders, or even have her working on her own as an assassin, sent by the Hand, or hell, make it neat, sent by the Kingpin. Why? Because you don't need to play into her origins that much, because she's at least been hinted at in the last season being that girl from college, so anyone can connect the dots as to what's happened. And she's been an independent assassin before, in the comics. She's been the leader of the Hand before, and even just a member of the Hand. Introducing her this way instantly opens up her cred as a badass without needing to try and play some stupid love game with it the way they did, which really hindered the character, like I said earlier. Having her come in swinging, first with some ninja assassin skills, like her trying to garrote him with some hidden cord, maybe a shuriken at his face, sparking against his mask, looking really cool before she finally draws her size, where we get the much needed epic close quarter combat. He's outmatched because guess what? He's not fully epic martial artist. Say she used the garrote wire, it actually cuts that weird padded part of his cowl, so one good hit, bam, it goes flying off. Suddenly Elektra sees Matt as Daredevil and does her ninja vanish thing. Coming back into his apartment, barely able to talk and completely ass-handed to him, Foggy is there, laying into him about how hard Matt himself pushed for this trial, but Foggy's had to be the one carrying the load. All the while, Nelson and Murdoch is going under because they're trying to do good within the law without any money. And if Matt can't see how that's more important than punching people in the face, then N&M isn't going to survive and he's going to lose a friend. Matt tries explaining, again looking like hell, that there's literally ninjas roaming around New York, and that whoever is in charge of them will never see the inside of a courtroom, so he has to be the devil to protect where the law can't. Stick then comes in saying, it's worse than some namby-pamby morality play or some junk, kicking Foggy out, really cementing the divide between Foggy and Matt's friendship. See, while it's literally spelling out the message for this season, you're using both characters' motivations to drive the narrative and their personal arcs forward. Meanwhile, you get to keep the Karen arc. That's actually not a bad arc, and it has some heart to it. It also gives her something to do that isn't her just being a crusty little girl. So anyways, Foggy leaves, and you can give Foggy basically the same arc going out, what with joining up with Carrie Ann Moss and whatnot. Anyways, for the big Elektra storyline, have her be the one to kidnap Stick before Dee Dee does the abandoned train tunnel shtick, with Karen instead of Foggy, maybe from her archive work or something like that. As for Elektra's backstory, keep that Stick taught her and gave her to the ambassador and all that, with her parents' assassination leading her into the hands of the Hand. Her and Matt's relationship in college should be less, ooh, let's play in the dark, and more just a torrid love affair that ended abruptly with her parents' death. Maybe keep the sex in the ring part, though possibly more about him feeling her, sort of in the same vein that the Matt Karen kiss scene was, just because it would have added, like, uber amounts of sex appeal. And have the whole heart change stem not from because Matt loved, but because the Hand were the ones who assassinated her parents to get her into the Hand, because she's the Black Sky, and then you've got all that. And add in that she needs to embrace it and not have it just be some dark passenger that makes her instantly brutal. But because she does have her change of heart, that's when Nobu gets called in, because come on, he literally only lost against Daredevil because of not minding his surroundings rather than being beat by Matt legitimately. Which in this really gets toned down to being Nobu is good but not as deadly, which really felt weak throughout this season. Seriously, he had like 3 fight scenes with Daredevil by himself, and it always ended with, good night, I'll kill you in the morning. And then we reach the finale, where it all comes to a head. Punisher is still back on the trail of the blacksmith, with Karen following her own lead to reach the same conclusion, basically following up to the same climax. Meanwhile, the Hand are actively hunting for Dee Dee and Elektra, so they go to a chaste safe house, with Styx saying deuces during it and leaving. Elektra and Matt have their heart-to-heart. However, it lays out where they both admit that they're far too broken now to be around normal people, alluding to the Punisher and his wanton views of the world, as they're both soldiers in a much larger war now. Maybe this is where we'll have Melvin bring the new suit for both of them, and right as they're leaving, the Hand attacks. This is where we get a full-on chaste versus Hand fight, with Melvin actually whipping a couple of saw blades around to escape because he can't do this and he has to go protect Betsy. Or something, just to give an extra nod to Gladiator and the character. I love the character. The entire fight scene leads Daredevil and Elektra to the rooftop trying to escape, since the wholesale slaughter of the chase really is only because they're after Dee Dee and Elektra for the most part. Yet Nobu's there, and we get an epic rooftop fight scene. Nobu, with his shoge hook, is kicking both their asses, or at least on par, especially with the other ninjas popping in to take on whoever isn't being punched by Nobu. And here's where we get the Punisher cameo to tap out his entire arc, where he uses that minigun hinted at to mow down the roof from a parallel roof, so then you can get an awesome laydown fight. You know, where all of them are on their backs fighting. It always looks cool to me. He empties the minigun. Hell, maybe even have a couple Hand try going after him, with him just shotgunning or shooting him with a pistol and saying, I helped, and then leaving. Nobu is still kicking their ass, starting to choke out Daredevil with his chain. Elektra, who maybe got hit during Punisher's initial volley, limps forward, bleeding out, a sigh in hand. She threatens Nobu, not with his death, but with taking her own life, bringing the sigh to her chest. Nobu scoffs, saying that he'll deal with her later. The swift kick drives the sigh into her chest. In a rage, we get Daredevil turning the tide, with Nobu barely handling the boxing brawler style that Daredevil's laying out, reminiscent of where he came from with his father. Dee Dee loses his billy club, but takes off his helmet and starts using that to deflect the blade and use it as a weapon before slamming it into Nobu's face. Nobu goes down, but in his rage, he keeps slamming his helmet mask thing down into Nobu, beating him to death. And with sirens approaching, he picks up the lifeless Elektra and flees, ending with a slow-motion shot of Dee Dee's blood-covered helmet mask with the rain starting to come down, allowing for the blood to slowly pour off, reminiscent of the opening credits. Then we cut to the funeral scene, which you can keep pretty much the same. However, the final shot of this season should have been Matt. Now understanding he can't end up merely a dead soldier, goes to Nelson and Murdoch offices, ready to say sorry to everyone. But Foggy and Karen are there cleaning out their desks, the eviction notice still on the door, and the power having been turned off a couple days. Foggy lays out that he's done, he's out, he doesn't have anything to fall back on, so he's going where he can make a living and still do good. Karen brings up the same, nearly ready to cry about the fact that she's so sorry to see all this friendship end, because it really was great when Matt wasn't so distant. And that's when Matt tells Karen that he's not a drunk, or a clumsy blonde guy, he is Daredevil. And that's where you can have the post-credits scene where Elektra is thrown into the magical bathtub of healing, or the magic jar of greed, or whatever you want to call it. And there you go. I know hindsight's 20/20, but really I think this would have worked out a lot better for the show in both pacing, style, characterization. Honestly, it would have just ramped it up to being even better than the first season. Now, I know some people will disagree with me, but honestly, what do you think they could have changed? Leave a comment below. If you like my plot idea, also let me know. The comments are there so we can have a discussion, or you can just say how stupid I am and my editing sucks. Either way, let's have a talk about it. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook as the Archivist. All the links are down in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel where I cover a hell of a lot of comic book related topics, especially in my RCVs. I'm the Archivist. Thanks for listening. See you later.